Hey everybody, it's me Tomebinder, and in this video I'm going to be showing you some ways to upgrade the intelligence of your Ancient Warfare 3 units. Let's get started. In this video I'll be showing you some ways to make your standard troops behave more tactically using global scripts. For the most part we'll be using the prefab editor as opposed to the map editor to create individual soldiers with scripted properties. This will just make it a lot easier for you to mass produce them and place them around your maps in large quantities. To start out, I'm going to show you how to make units call out when they're injured, when they need fire support, and just for passive dialogue. And since we don't want to clog up global scripts, we're going to create an invisible wall behind the unit, make it disabled, have it block nothing, make it invisible, and then make it as small as possible. This will be our script container for making these units. Now we're going to click into the wall, make a script, and here we have some sound files for the callout. Right now we're just making an on-damage script, where the unit will call out that they need a medic when they're damaged. This won't happen every time, but it will happen on occasion. And later on we'll script it so that a medic can actually come and help them. Essentially this is really just a bit of... Essentially what this boils down to is just using randoms. So all you have to do is generate a random integer, and you get to decide how rare it is for the unit to yell out that they need a medic. So, for instance, let's have it generate a random number between 1 and 10. We'll say if the number is larger or equal than 7, or no, we'll say 4 for now. If it's larger or equal than 4, then the unit will call out. Now it's just a matter of deciding what it calls out, which sound file we use. So we need to generate another random number between 1 and 3. We'll put the script down over here. And why not put this into an array, just to get people more comfortable using arrays. So each one of these will be loaded into an array. Then we will get the element from the array equivalent to the number that was drawn from this 1 to 3 pick. And then whatever element was gotten from the array will be played. Now there's a certain thing we want to do here. First of all, we need to get the position of this unit before we can have it play the sound. Then we can just have the sound play from its position, so that should make sense. We'll set the range to about 30, or maybe more like 20. Volume, we'll put it about 120. Now we'll just attach this. And now our unit will call out for a medic whenever it's injured. About 60% of the time. If you want to make it happen more often, you just need to change this number to be lower. If you want it to happen less often, change the number to be higher. Now we'll test this out. Oh, you see, it's referencing the wall, not the unit, so we have to change that in our prefab, but it should work now. We'll test it out.
I need a medic!
Medic! Medic!
So there you can see it works as intended. Now we can add a little more sophisticated elements to this. In particular, we want to be very careful that these sounds don't overlap one another. So in order to prevent that, here's what we're going to do. Before it decides what sound to actually play, it's going to get something. A bool variable called isPlaying. And if that bool variable is false, then we can continue as normal. But if it's true, nothing must happen. Otherwise, it will allow these sounds to overlap with one another, which is an effect we really, really do not want. So that's simply all we need to do to make everything work as intended. We're now going to save this simply as government sergeant. Alright, since the sergeant is a close-range soldier, we're going to script him now so he moves in closer if his shots aren't connecting and doing enough damage. We'll start out by doing an on-damage global. And of course, it has to be from the sergeant himself, so we'll just hook that up right now. From that sergeant. And if that's true, we need to get how much damage was done. And if it is smaller or equal to 50 points of damage, that is insufficient. So, first of all, let's set his normal range. It's already very low by default, so we're going to set it up to 40 for a good default shotgun range. Actually, we could probably do it up to 50, because with this script, it should work very well. If his shots do less than 50 damage, you need to set his range. If his shots do less than 50 damage, we need to replace him with a sergeant that has less range. So now what we need to do is make a version of the sergeant that has less range. We'll reduce his engage and attack distance to 20 and save him once again. Government Sergeant Short Range. But before we do that, we need to get the health of the sergeant when we change it so that it's the same and it carries over. This is a similar thing, this is a similar concept to what I did during the video about making boss fights. Then we're going to replace him with the short-range version. Then we'll set the health of this replaced version to be what it was before we changed the unit. And now that this script is encompassing two different units, this pre-placed one here and this replaced one, well, we still want this guy to be able to call out for a medic. So we actually have to use a concept similar to the phase system from our boss fight. It shouldn't be too complicated to add into the script here, so I'll show you what we need to do. We need to create a new variable and set its input type to, if it's here, unit. We need a unit. There it is. And now, quite simply, instead of having it be a health on damage, we need an on damage global. And we'll set this to active unit to maintain consistency with our boss fight video. When we start the battle, we'll set the active unit to be the pre-placed sergeant. Once again, in keeping with the boss fight video. Then, rather than doing a damage node, like this, oh, not this one, like this, which can only work for one unit, we'll now simply do an on-damage global. And if the damaged unit is our active sergeant, then whoever it is will shout for a medic. So if the damaged unit is this active sergeant unit, well then, we just run this as normal. Very simply, that's all we gotta do. We have to change a few things about this now though. We have to replace every individual mention of the pre-placed unit. We have to exchange that out for the active unit variable. So let's do that right now. We need to get the position, but first we need to get the active unit. And that is what we'll get the position of. This way we can incorporate the shorter range guy. Now down here, we have a get health. So we have to get rid of that. Get the active unit. Unit to health. That's all we gotta do. But actually, now that I see it, we don't need to have this be an active unit, because this script will only run if there's still the pre-placed, this guy right here, that you can see in the background. So there's no need to do the active unit variable in that case, because we know for sure this script will only run when there's only one type of unit, this one. Alright. Now just to make things look a little bit nicer, and we will set the active unit to be this new one right here. That, folks, is all we have to do. You want to test it out? Let's test it out. Look at that, he changed over to the shorter range version. Because he didn't do enough damage. Yeah, now he's gotten closer and he's doing more. Now I'll damage him back. Medic! And as you can see, because of the changes we've made to incorporate the active unit variable, even the shorter range version of the same unit will say medic. Now we're going to have our unit do some custom actions during the battle. For instance, they'll crouch and go prone when they're injured. If a unit's ever damaged, and it equals the active unit representing this particular sergeant, then we'll once again use a random node to indicate what happens. And roughly 50% of the time, we'll say, something will happen. Now we're going to get the position of the sergeant and whatever damaged him. Put them together and see how far away they are. And now, depending on how far away the two units are, the sergeant will either crouch or go prone. The distance will also affect how long he's in this position. If the distance is larger or equal to 50, never mind. I'm going to get rid of this and do it for a different type of unit. Alright, now we're going to script in some battle actions, similarly to how Men of War Assault Squad 2 works, where if unit's damaged it might go prone, it might crouch, things like that. I use this in my Creed vs. Rust map, but we're going to do it in a little more detail here. So we're going to get rid of this sergeant. We'll get a government recruit. Add a new global script, and we'll call it Battle Actions. We'll get an on-damage global, sorry. I think we could actually just do an on-damage, because I don't think this guy's going to change his... He's going to be replaced by any unit, so we'll just do it that way. And actually, let's get out a global script here. We have to do it in this. So here's how you can have a unit behave like they would in Men of War Assault Squad 2. Now, just for an extra redundancy, we'll also add an active unit variable here. If you're not planning on doing the thing that I did earlier with the sergeant, where he was replaced by a short-range version of himself, then there's no reason to do this. I'm just doing it in case later on in this video I do that for this guy. We're going to set the starting active unit to be this pre-placed rifleman here. And we'll use that as a reference point for many of the other scripts in this container. So on damage global, if the damaged unit equals the active unit for this recruit, then exciting things happen. What happens then is we'll get the position of both the active unit and whoever damaged him. So it's represented just like this. Copy and paste the node down here. Get whoever damaged him, and boom. Now we've gotten the position of both of those two units. We now need to get the distance between those two positions. And depending on how big of a distance it is, this guy will either stay standing, crouch, or go prone. The distance will also affect how long he stays in these positions. So we'll just say if the distance is larger or equal to 60, this will be when he has the highest chance of lying down, but he also can crouch. So if the distance is larger or equal to 60, we'll say high prone chance. But if it ends up not being over 60, and still over 40, then we say high crouch chance. And if it's less than 40, it'll be a high chance of just standing. So once again, we're going to use randoms. And if the result is larger or equal to 4, then we'll set the active unit. We gotta get the active unit first of all. We'll set his pose to lying down. If the number is 3, 2, or 1, different things happen. So if the number is 3 or 2, we will set his position to be crouching instead. But if it's still not 2, if it's just the number 1, so there's only a 10% chance of this happening, then nothing happens. He'll stay standing. Now we need to see how long it lasts. So I'd say it will last the distance between the two units divided by 10. So we'll take the distance again and divide two floats, like this. Drag the distance all the way over here, divided by 10, and that number is exactly how long it will stay in these positions. After that, behavior will be set back to default. First of all, we've got to add a delay node, of course. After that, behavior set back to default for the active unit. And just to make sure there's no funniness where the units freeze up, because that happens sometimes, we'll clear their target. So that's how we'll do it. We just need to copy and paste part of the script for the high crouch chance, and we'll be all good to go. Just get the numbers here. We'll reduce this down to 30 instead of 40. All we have to do is change this to crouch, which means 60% of the time in this case he'll crouch, and in any other case, if it's 1, 2, or 3, he'll just stand. We'll do this exact same script, just connect them up together. And now this should work. Let's test it out. All of these scripts will be available on the Steam Workshop when I post these prefabs, don't worry. Alright now, stop me if this has happened to you before, alright? You've been playing an Ancient Warfare 3 map, you shoot an enemy unit that's on guard mode, and then his ally, 5 feet away, does nothing. He doesn't even react to the fact that his trusted comrade has just died. Well, I've figured out a way to resolve that. In the prefab, we're going to create a spherical trigger around our recruit, and he's going to detect if anybody on his team dies within that trigger. If they die, and he has no target, meaning he hasn't entered the fight yet, then he'll immediately set his target to whoever killed his teammate. Alright, we've just about finished up here. Let's see this in action. So you may have noticed during that clip that there was one moment where one of the two recruits went into prone, but then kind of froze up and didn't do anything. So we're going to try to fix that now by having the soldiers save their target before they go prone, and then once they get up from being prone, resume targeting that same unit. This will help in some situations, but there's going to be a few exceptions to this rule, but I'm choosing not to script them in right now. This should fix the problem of units freezing up in the vast majority of cases. If you have any questions about this, for instance, if you try to make this on your own and problems occur, please just ask me in the comments and I will be glad to help you. For the final step in this process, I've just kind of slapped on a script from the Good of the Company that was related to the military units and what they're going to say in combat. So this is just a little more advanced version of what I used for the sergeants, and so now this will be running for every recruit during the battles. So now I've got things just about as advanced as I can get them at the moment. There's obviously more stuff I could do, but this I think could get your gears turning and thinking about the various possibilities. So we're gonna throw all this together and combine it into one map and take a look at what this looks like in battle, in actual combat situations.
Medic! Medic!
Alright everybody, well I've gone through just about everything I have on the list for today's video. I hope that this was helpful to you. I know that this was a little more of an advanced guide, so it may not be as helpful to everybody, especially compared to some of the more beginner level things like the Ultimate Scripting Guide. But I do hope that some people who are hoping to make more strategic units find this video helpful. I probably will make follow-up tutorials, especially I'm currently wrangling with figuring out a way to make units use a cover system that in a way that isn't completely, tedious to script in. But anyway, thank you again for watching this video. I do appreciate the continued support of my channel, and I will continue to post these sorts of resources for you players for your own Ancient Warfare 3 projects. If you want to support my channel, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe, or follow my Steam Workshop. Anyway, that's about all I have for you today. See you in the next video.